In a city where silence blends with tradition, a pregnant woman suffers a mysterious fall in the middle of the night. Her husband, a respected businessman, claims it was an accident, but old signs of control and violence begin to emerge from the shadows. The truth comes to light when his own mother hands over a recording that dismantles the official version and reveals the hidden horror. From that moment on, justice, pain, and transformation intertwine in a story of rebirth that will change the fate of many other silenced voices. The dawn in Brighton was always silent, especially on Imperial Street, where colonial mansions guarded secrets as old as their walls. Marina Anderson woke with a start at a noise from downstairs. 8 months of pregnancy made any movement an arduous task, but something inside her told her she needed to check. The digital clock read 3:40 in the morning. She descended the stairs carefully, one hand resting on her voluminous belly, the other holding the dark wooden banister. The house was plunged into shadows, only the faint moonlight entering through the wide windows. Marina had always loved that house with its high ceilings and stained glass windows, but lately it felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in around her. She found Raphael in the living room, sifting through papers on the coffee table. Her husband, always impeccable even in the middle of the night, wore silk pajama bottoms and a white t-shirt. He looked up when he saw her, and Marina noticed a tension in his face that she couldn't quite decipher. "Raphael, what are you doing awake at this hour?" she asked, approaching slowly. He quickly closed a folder of documents. "Work, Marina. You know how complicated things are at the company. Miller Construction is trying to push us out of the new mall project. Go back to bed, you need to rest." Marina felt a tightening in her chest. In recent months, conversations like this had become frequent. Raphael always had a plausible explanation, always a professional concern that justified his behavior. But there was something more, something she couldn't name. "I just came to see if everything was all right. I heard a noise." Raphael stood up, walking towards her with that smile that once made her feel protected, but which now carried something indefinable. It was the same smile he used when explaining why she shouldn't meet her friends, why the doctor he chose was better than the one she wanted, why it was better for her to stop painting until the baby was born. "You're too anxious, Marina. That's not good for our daughter. Come on, I'll take you back." He extended his hand, but Marina hesitated. There was something on the table that had caught her attention, something that looked like a photograph, but Raphael was blocking her view. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to the table. Raphael's face hardened for a fraction of a second before returning to his controlled expression. "Nothing for you to worry about. They're company documents. You know I don't like to mix work with home, but sometimes it's inevitable." Marina took a step forward, trying to see better, but Raphael held her arm firmly. It wasn't an aggressive touch, but there was an authority in it that made her stop instantly. "Marina, you're overreacting. You're seeing things that aren't there. It's the pregnancy. The hormones make you too sensitive." She knew that strategy. Raphael had a gift for making her question her own perception of reality. How many times in recent months had she felt something was wrong, only for him to convince her that she was imagining things, that she was being dramatic, that the stress of pregnancy made her paranoid. But this time was different. There was urgency in his movements, a poorly disguised anxiety that contradicted his calm words. "I'm not making anything up, Raphael. There's something you're not telling me." The silence that followed was heavy. Raphael released her arm and ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture he made when he was annoyed. Marina had known him for 7 years, married for 5, and knew how to read those small signs. "You want to know what's going on, Marina? Very well. The company is undergoing an audit. There are some irregularities I'm trying to resolve before they become a bigger problem. That's why I've been tense, satisfied." There was truth in that. Marina could feel it. But there was also something he omitted, a layer beneath the explanation that remained hidden. She opened her mouth to respond when she felt a sharp pang in her belly. The baby was moving more than usual, as if she could feel the tension in the room. Raphael noticed her discomfort and immediately changed his demeanor. "See? You're stressing for nothing and harming our daughter. Come, I'll make you some chamomile tea." He led her back towards the stairs, but Marina felt her legs weak. The tension of recent months, the sleepless nights, the constant questioning of her own sanity, all weighed on her like an invisible armor. As they went up, Marina thought of Beatrice and Julia, her closest friends since college. How long had it been since she'd seen them? 3 months, maybe 4. Raphael always had a reason for her. To cancel their meetings. High-risk pregnancy, the need for rest, the importance of avoiding busy environments. All reasons that sounded sensible when he presented them, but which now seemed like pieces of a larger puzzle. In the bedroom, Raphael helped her lie down on the bed, adjusting the extra pillows the doctor had recommended for her position. "I'll get the tea. Try to relax." As soon as he left, Marina picked up her phone from the bedside table. She had 3 unread messages from Beatrice, all from the day before. She found it strange, as she was sure she had already replied. She opened the app and realized the conversations were marked as read, but she didn't remember opening them. A chill ran down her spine. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Messages that disappeared, conversations she didn't remember having, appointments that vanished from her calendar. Raphael always explained that it was her memory failing due to pregnancy, that it was normal, that she was overwhelmed. But what if it wasn't? She quickly typed a message to Beatrice. "I need to talk to you, it's urgent. Tomorrow at 10 at the cafe in the square. I won't cancel. This time I promise." She sent it before she could regret it. Her heart pounded in her chest. She was doing something wrong. She was distrusting her own husband without concrete reasons. But then, why did she feel so much fear? Raphael returned with the steaming cup of tea, the aroma of chamomile filling the room. "Here it is. Drink slowly, it's hot." Marina accepted the cup, her hands trembling slightly. Raphael sat on the edge of the bed, watching her with that attention that once seemed affectionate, but now resembled surveillance. "Marina, I know these months have been difficult. For you. The pregnancy, the changes in your body, the hormones. But you need to trust me. Everything I do is for our good, for our family. You know that, don't you?" She nodded, taking a sip of the tea. Too hot. It burned her tongue. But she didn't complain. She had learned that complaining only generated more explanations, more justifications, more ways to make her feel guilty for questioning. "I know, Raphael." "Great. Now rest. Tomorrow you have an appointment with Dr. Henry at 2 in the afternoon. I'll pick you up at noon so we can have lunch. First, the appointment." Marina had completely forgotten, and the meeting with Beatrice was at 10. She would have enough time to get back before Raphael arrived. She had to. "All right," she replied, sinking into the pillows. Raphael kissed her forehead, a mechanical gesture that no longer carried the affection it once did. "Good night, Marina. Sleep well." He turned off the light and left the room, closing the door carefully. Marina lay in the dark, listening to her own heartbeats, feeling the baby move inside her. An entire life depended on the choices she would make from now on. She picked up her phone again, the screen light illuminating her face in the dimness. Beatrice had already replied. "I'll be there, friend. You can count on me. I'm worried about you." Marina typed back. "I'm worried about me too. I need help understanding what's happening." She deleted the message before sending it. Too dramatic, too revealing. Raphael could be checking her phone after all. He knew all her passwords, had access to all her accounts. It was practical, he said. Couples shouldn't have secrets. Instead, she sent only a heart emoji and locked her phone. She closed her eyes, trying to push away the thoughts that spun in her mind like an endless carousel. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she would talk to Beatrice. Tomorrow she would start looking for answers to questions she still couldn't fully formulate. But tomorrow seemed too far away, and the weight in her chest only grew. Marina woke to the sun flooding the room through the linen curtains. She looked to the side and realized Raphael had already left. The clock read 8:30. She had enough time to get ready and meet Beatrice at the cafe in the square. She got up slowly, feeling the weight of her belly making every movement difficult. In the bathroom, she looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The green eyes that once sparkled now seemed dull, lifeless. Her brown hair, which she used to wear loose and shiny, was tied in a messy bun, but it was the discreet purple mark on her arm that caught her attention. She approached the mirror, pulling up the sleeve of her robe. There it was, a purplish mark in the shape of fingers. She tried to remember when that had happened, the night before, Raphael holding her arm to stop her from seeing the papers. But he hadn't squeezed hard, or had he? Her memory seemed hazy, imprecise. She covered the mark with concealer and foundation, something she had been doing frequently in recent months. Small bruises that appeared and that she couldn't explain. Raphael said it was the fragility of pregnancy, that her platelets might be low, that she bruised easily and forgot. Always a medical explanation, always a justification that sounded reasonable. She put on a long sleeved blouse, even with the November heat intensifying in Brighton. She picked up her bag and went downstairs. Carefully. In the kitchen, she found a note from Raphael on the counter. Gone to sort out company matters. I'll be back before noon. Don't forget I'm picking you up for lunch. With love, Raphael. Marina picked up the note and put it in her bag. She wasn't sure why. Something about preserving evidence of a situation she didn't yet fully understand. She ordered a rideshare and headed towards St. Peter's Square, in the historic city centre. The cafe was a small, cosy place, decorated with Portuguese tiles and light wooden tables. Beatrice was already there, sitting in a corner, near the window, and her face lit up when she saw Marina enter. She immediately stood up, hugging her friend carefully, so as not to press her belly. "Marina, my goodness, it's been so long. You're huge. The baby's growing well," Beatrice said, pulling back to observe her better. Beatrice was 32, the same age as Marina, but looked younger with her loose curls and colourful clothes. She worked as an investigative journalist for the region's main newspaper and had that sharp gaze of someone always looking for the truth behind appearances. "She is. Only 4 weeks left," Marina replied, sitting down with difficulty. A waitress came to take their order. Beatrice ordered a cappuccino and a croissant. Marina hesitated, remembering all the dietary restrictions Raphael had imposed, saying the doctor recommended them. But Dr. Henry had never mentioned half of those prohibitions in the few appointments where she had managed to speak to him alone. "A natural orange juice and a cheese puff, please," she said, feeling strangely rebellious for making a choice without asking permission. Beatrice watched her carefully, that investigative gaze missing no details. "Marina, are you okay? And don't give me automatic answers. I've been your friend for 12 years. I know when something's wrong." Marina felt her eyes well up. How long had it been since anyone had truly asked her that, without expecting a rehearsed answer? "I don't know, Bea. Honestly, I don't know what's real anymore and what I'm imagining." Beatrice reached across the table, holding Marina's hand firmly. "Tell me, everything." And Marina told her. She talked about how Raphael had subtly begun to change after the wedding, how he started to comment on her clothes, suggesting certain pieces were inappropriate for a married woman, how he began to question her schedule, always with concern, always saying it was for safety, how he installed tracking apps on her phone claiming it was for emergencies. She talked about the pregnancy and how everything intensified. The doctor he insisted she consult, even though she liked the gynecologist who had been with her for years. The messages that disappeared from her phone, the meetings with friends that were always cancelled, the constant feeling of being watched, observed, controlled. "And the painting, Bea. I had that studio in the back of the house, remember? He convinced my father to turn it into a room for the baby. He said the paints could be harmful, that I needed to focus on the pregnancy. I didn't even question it, I just let it happen." Beatrice listened in silence, but Marina could see the concern growing in her eyes. When she finished, Beatrice took a deep breath before speaking. "Marina, what you're describing has a name. It's called psychological abuse. It's a pattern of control and manipulation that often goes unnoticed because it leaves no visible marks." Marina shook her head. "But Raphael never hit me, Bea. He's thoughtful, concerned. Maybe I really am exaggerating. Maybe it's the pregnancy, making me sensitive." Beatrice squeezed her hand tighter. "Listen to what you're saying. You're using the same arguments he would use. This is what they call gaslighting. He makes you doubt your own perception of reality." Marina felt a lump in her throat. But why? Why would he do that? Control, power. There are 1,000 reasons, and none of them justify his behavior. Marina, you need to seek help. A lawyer, a psychologist, someone who can guide you. But I have no proof of anything, they're just feelings, impressions. Who will believe me? Beatrice picked up her phone and started typing. I know a lawyer specializing in family law, Dr. Camilla Rogers. She handles cases like this. Let me book an appointment for you. Marina looked around as if Raphael could appear at any moment. I don't know if I can be. What if I'm wrong? What if I destroy my marriage because of paranoia? And what if you're right, Marina? What if things get worse after the baby is born? Do you want to raise your daughter in an environment like this? The mention of her daughter was like a punch to the stomach. Marina placed her hand on her belly, feeling the baby's gentle movements. No, she didn't want that for her. All right, book the appointment. Beatrice smiled, relieved. Great. I'll try for this week. And Marina, I want you to start documenting everything. Every episode, every deleted message, every time he stops you from doing something. Write it down in a notebook, take photos if there are marks. We need to build a history. Marina nodded, feeling both relieved and terrified. She was taking a step from which there was no turning back. She was admitting that something was profoundly wrong in her marriage. She looked at the clock, 10:50. She needed to go back soon. Raphael would arrive at noon and couldn't suspect anything. I need to go, Bea. I'll take you home. No, it's better not to. I'll get a rideshare. Beatrice hugged her again goodbye. I'm here for whatever you need, okay? Any time, any day, you're not alone. Marina left the cafe feeling different, lighter in a way for having shared the weight she carried, but also more frightened, because now there were words for what she was experiencing, and words made things real. The car dropped her off at home at 11:20. She quickly went inside, changed her clothes, and lay down on the living room sofa, pretending she had been there all along. She picked up a book from the coffee table and tried to concentrate on the words, but they danced before her eyes without making sense. She thought of her parents, Henry and Martha Anderson. Her father was an imposing man, a retired former prosecutor, known for his integrity and sense of justice. Her mother, a retired literature professor, was sweet but perceptive. They had liked Raphael when Marina introduced him 7 years ago. He was charming, successful, from a traditional Brighton family. He seemed like the perfect son-in-law. But lately Marina had noticed a different look in her father's eyes when he visited. An unverbalized concern, questions he started to ask, but didn't finish. Are you happy, Marina? Does he treat you well? Questions she always answered with automatic smiles and empty phrases. And her mother. Martha had commented on the long-sleeved clothes in the heat, on the weight Marina had lost in the first trimester of pregnancy, on how she always seemed tired, but Marina had attributed everything to the pregnancy, and her mother, wanting to believe her daughter, had accepted the explanations. The sound of the key in the lock brought her back to the present. Raphael entered carrying bags from a children's clothing store. Hello, darling. I was thinking of you. I brought some things for our princess. He placed the bags on the floor and approached, kissing her on the forehead. Marina forced a smile. How lovely, Raphael. You didn't have to. Of course I did. Our daughter deserves the best. By the way, we need to decide on the nursery decor. I was thinking pink and white tones, very delicate. What do you think? Marina looked at the bags, at her smiling husband, at the life they had built together. Everything seemed so normal on the surface. How to explain to someone that beneath this normalcy there was something rotten, something that was slowly suffocating her? I think it's beautiful, she replied, because that's what was expected of her. Raphael looked at her carefully. You seem different today. Did something happen? Marina's heart raced. He could tell. He always noticed when something changed. No, why? I don't know. You seem more alert. Was it that insomnia from yesterday? Are you sleeping badly? I'm fine, Raphael, just anxious about the approaching delivery. He watched her for a few more seconds before nodding. I understand. Well, let's have lunch, and then I'll take you to your appointment. Dr. Henry wants to check the baby's position. At the restaurant, Raphael talked about work, about the construction company's projects, about plans for after the baby's birth. Marina ate mechanically, nodding at the right moments, smiling when appropriate. She had learned the art of appearing present while her mind was far away, but something had changed that morning. The conversation with Beatrice had planted a seed that was beginning to germinate. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't imagining things. There was a name for what she was experiencing, and that meant other women had been through it too. And if others had, it meant there was a way out. The days that followed the meeting with Beatrice were tense. Marina had started to write things down, as her friend suggested. Small episodes in a notebook she hid inside a box of sanitary pads in the bathroom, the only place she was sure Raphael wouldn't search. Each page revealed a pattern she hadn't been able to see when she lived the moments in isolation. Monday, November 14th. Raphael deleted a message from Julia before I could read it. Said it was spam, but I saw her name appear on the screen. Tuesday, November 15th. Found my phone unlocked on the bedside table in the morning. I'm sure I locked it the night before. Messaging app was open. Wednesday, November 16th. Raphael cancelled an appointment with Dr. Patricia, my old gynecologist, saying she was traveling. I called the office later and the receptionist confirmed she was seeing patients as normal. The list grew, and the more Marina wrote, the clearer the web of manipulation she was caught in became. Beatrice called every day, using the landline phone when she knew Raphael would be out, brief but comforting conversations. The appointment with the lawyer was scheduled for next Tuesday. On Thursday night, Marina was in the bedroom flipping through children's decoration magazines Raphael had brought when she heard voices coming from his downstairs office. He was on the phone, and the tone was different, harsher, less controlled. She got up slowly and walked to the hallway. The office door was ajar, and Raphael's voice echoed up the stairs. "I already said everything is under control. You don't need to worry about that now. Marina doesn't suspect anything." Marina felt her blood run cold. What was he talking about? She went down a few steps, trying to hear better without being detected. "No, Mom. She can't know. If she finds out, everything falls apart. You promised you'd keep quiet about that." His mother, Mrs. Sylvia Miller, an elegant and reserved woman who had always been cordial with Marina, but kept a certain distance. What did she know that Marina couldn't find out? "Look, the situation with the other one was different. That was years ago and we resolved it. Marina doesn't need to know that story. It would be unnecessary to worry her now, especially while pregnant." Marina held onto the banister to keep from swaying. The other one. Which other one? Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure Raphael could hear it from there. "Yes, I know you feel guilty, but it was better that way, for everyone. She got what she wanted and disappeared. End of story." The baby started kicking hard, as if she could feel her mother's panic. Marina took a deep breath, trying to calm down. She needed to get back to the bedroom before Raphael finished the call and found her there. She climbed the stairs carefully, each step seeming endless. When she reached the bedroom, she quickly lay down on the bed, picking up the magazine again. Her hands trembled so much that the pages rustled audibly. Minutes later, Raphael came up. He found her seemingly calm, reading about nursery furniture. He smiled, that smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Still awake, darling. It's past 11. "I was looking at ideas for the room. I like this crib here," she replied, pointing to a random photo. Raphael sat on the edge of the bed looking at the image. "Beautiful. We can buy that one. By the way, I was thinking that after the baby is born, it would be good for you to stay home for a while. Forget this idea of going back to painting professionally. A mother needs to be present in the first years." Marina swallowed hard. They had never discussed this. She had always made it clear that she intended to resume her artistic career after maternity leave. But now Raphael was deciding for her, as he always did. "Let's talk about that later, Raphael. There are still weeks until the delivery." "Of course, I was just thinking about what's best for our family." He kissed her forehead and went to the bathroom. Marina closed her eyes, trying to process what she had heard. Another woman. A secret Mrs. Sylvia was keeping, something that could make everything fall apart if she found out. She needed to tell Beatrice, but when she picked up her phone, she realized Raphael had taken it with him to the bathroom. He always did that lately, claiming he was checking important work, emails. When he returned, he placed the device on the bedside table next to his, out of Marina's reach. The night was long. Marina pretended to sleep while formulating plans. She needed to find out more about this other woman. She needed to understand what was happening before making any drastic decisions. The appointment with the lawyer on Tuesday would be crucial, but fate had other plans. In the early hours of Friday morning, Marina woke up thirsty. Her mouth was dry, her throat scratchy. She got up carefully so as not to wake Raphael and went down to the kitchen. She poured herself some cold water from the fridge and drank it avidly. That's when she saw it. Through the kitchen window, which overlooked the side garden, there was a light on in Raphael's office. He should have been sleeping, but the light was there, clear and unmistakable. Marina walked to the living room, her socks silent on the wooden floor. The office door was closed this time. She slowly turned the doorknob, and the door opened without a sound. The office was empty, but the computer was on, the screen glowing in the darkness. She approached the desk, her heart pounding. On the screen, an open folder with documents. Marina recognized company papers, contracts, spreadsheets, but there was something more. A folder titled Personal. She knew she shouldn't. She knew she was invading his privacy, but something stronger than reason compelled her to click. The folder contained photos of a woman Marina didn't know, a young woman, brunette, smiling in some images, frightened in others. And there were documents. An out-of-court settlement dated 3 years ago. Terms like compensation, confidentiality, restraining order jumped off the screen. Marina felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. Raphael had a history. There was another victim before her, a woman he had paid to silence. That's when she heard footsteps upstairs. Raphael was waking up. In a panic, Marina quickly closed the folder, but in her haste, she bumped the mouse, opening another file, an audio recording. Without thinking, she connected her own phone to the computer and sent the file to her email, an instinctive act of preservation. The footsteps were coming down the stairs. Marina turned off the monitor and left the office, closing the door. She needed to get back to the kitchen, pretend she had only come, down for water, but in her haste, in the darkness, her foot missed a step. Everything happened in slow motion, the loss of balance, her heavy, pregnant body unable to compensate, the desperate attempt to grab the banister, and then the fall. Marina rolled 3 steps before Raphael, now running, managed to catch her. The pain was instant, sharp, radiating from her belly throughout her body. She screamed, a guttural sound that came from the deepest part of her being. "Marina! Marina, what happened?" Raphael's voice sounded genuinely terrified. He held her, checking if she was conscious, his hand trembling. As he touched her face, "I fell," was all she could say before another wave of pain hit her. "Don't move. I'll call an ambulance." Marina lay there on the cold living room floor, feeling a warm liquid trickle down her legs. Blood. She was bleeding. And the baby, who always moved so much, was now terrifyingly quiet. Tears streamed down her face as Raphael spoke urgently on the phone. She tried to remember what she had seen on the computer, the files, the photos. But the pain eclipsed everything. The only thing that mattered now was the baby. Her daughter. Please, no. Not like this. The ambulance arrived in 16 minutes, but it felt like hours. The paramedics immobilized her, asked questions she could barely answer. Raphael was by her side, holding her hand, saying everything would be all right, that it was just an accident, a stumble in the dark. But Marina knew the truth. It hadn't been just an accident. It was a consequence of everything, of every lie, every manipulation, every secret kept. It was the result of living in a constant state of alert, fear, and distrust. On the way to the hospital, she lost consciousness. The last thing she saw was Raphael's face, a perfect mask of concern. And she wondered in some distant corner of her mind that was shutting down, if that concern was real, or just another of his masterful performances. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped at regular intervals. Her body ached, but it was a distant pain, dulled by medication. She tried to move her hand to touch her belly, but found only emptiness. Her daughter was gone. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would be the same. Marina remained hospitalized for 5 days in the ICU of St. Teresa's Hospital, the most renowned in Brighton. Doctors monitored her physical recovery, but no one seemed concerned with the invisible wounds that bled within. She had been discharged to a private room, but the emptiness in her womb was a constant presence, a ghost that haunted her with every breath. Raphael was always present. He brought fresh flowers every day, talked to the doctors, ensured she had the best care. To an outside observer, he was the devoted husband, devastated by the tragedy that had shaken his family. But Marina saw beyond the facade. She saw the control in every seemingly affectionate gesture, the surveillance in every supposedly comforting word. It was her father who first planted the seed of doubt. Henry Anderson arrived at the hospital on the morning of the 3rd day, with a look Marina knew well. That expression he had when he was processing information in his ex-prosecutor's brain, connecting dots others didn't see. "Daughter, we need to talk," he said, when Raphael had momentarily stepped out to take a call in the hallway. Marina looked at her father, her brown eyes filled with a sadness that went beyond the immediate situation. "About what, Dad?" Henry pulled up a chair and sat close to the bed. "About what really happened that night. The doctors showed me the report of your injuries. Marina, the bruises on your body are not consistent with just a simple fall down the stairs." Marina's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "There are marks on your wrists and arms that indicate restraint, being held tightly. And there's a bruise on your back that doctors believe was caused by impact against something fixed, not by rolling down the stairs." Marina felt her throat tighten. She remembered the fall, the panic, the pain. But the moments before were hazy, fragmented by adrenaline and fear. Could there have been something more? Could Raphael have... "Dad, I don't remember clearly. It was dark. I was scared." Henry held her hand gently. "I know, darling, and I'm not pressuring you, but I need you to know that things don't look as simple as your husband is saying. There are inconsistencies in his account." Before Marina could respond, Raphael returned to the room. His face hardened when he saw Henry there, an expression he quickly replaced with a cordial smile. "Henry, I didn't know you were here. How are things?" "I was just visiting my daughter, Raphael. I hope you don't mind." "Of course not. Marina needs her family at this difficult time." But there was tension in the air, an undercurrent of hostility that Marina could feel. Her father said goodbye shortly after, but not before squeezing her hand in a way she understood as "be alert." In the following days, other people began to appear. Beatrice arrived with a bouquet of sunflowers and tears in her eyes. "Marina, I heard. My God, I'm so sorry." When they were alone, Beatrice whispered urgently. "The appointment with the lawyer. She said we can reschedule when you're better, but Marina, your father called me. He's investigating the case." Marina wasn't surprised. She knew her father well enough to know that his analytical mind wouldn't accept the official version of events without questioning. "He thinks it wasn't an accident." Beatrice hesitated before replying. "He asked me to discreetly investigate Raphael's past, as a journalist. Marina, I found something." "What?" "An archived police report from 3 years ago. A woman named Lorraine Silver. She filed a complaint against Raphael for assault and threats. The case was suppressed with a financial settlement." Marina felt her blood run cold. It was the woman from the photos she had seen on the computer. "Where is she now?" "She disappeared. Literally. She received a significant sum and moved to another state. I tried to locate her, but the trail ends in Manchester 2 years ago. No one knows her current whereabouts." Marina closed her eyes, the weight of the revelation falling on her like an avalanche. Raphael had a history. There was another victim, and that victim had been so afraid that she had completely disappeared after the settlement. "You need to tell my father this," Marina said, opening her eyes again. "I already did. He's using his old prosecutor's contacts to investigate further. But Marina, there's something else you need to know." Beatrice looked at the door, making sure no one was listening. "On the night of the accident, you sent me a file by email, an audio recording. Do you remember that?" Marina frowned, trying to access fragmented memories. The recording. She had connected her phone to Raphael's computer and sent something. But what? I don't remember the content. It's a call between Raphael and his mother, Mrs. Sylvia. They talk about Lorraine's case. His mother was there when everything happened, Marina. She witnessed something and lied to the police at the time to protect her son, and in the recording she says she can no longer live with the weight of her conscience. Marina felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Mrs. Sylvia knew the truth. She had always known and chosen silence, but now she was starting to crack under the weight of guilt. You can use that recording, Beatrice nodded. Your father already has a copy, and there's more. He managed to exhume Lorraine's old case. Her injuries at the time were very similar to yours now. Marks of restraint, signs of struggle. The pattern is identical. The bedroom door opened and Raphael entered, carrying a glass of juice. Beatrice quickly stood up, saying goodbye with a hug. I'll be back tomorrow, Marina. Take care. When she left, Raphael looked at Marina with that studied expression of concern. Your friend seemed nervous. Is everything all right? Yes, she's just worried about me. Raphael placed the juice on the bedside table and sat in the chair Beatrice had just vacated. Marina, I know these days have been terrible. We lost our daughter and nothing will bring her back, but we need to be strong together. Marina watched him, truly saw him perhaps for the first time in years, the handsome, well-dressed man with his rehearsed smile and carefully chosen words. How many other women had fallen into this trap? How many more would if he wasn't stopped? Raphael, the police were very specific in the questions they asked me. They're investigating more than a simple domestic accident. His face didn't change, but Marina saw his eyes darken for a fraction of a second. It's just standard procedure. Darling, in cases like this, they need to rule out other possibilities. What other possibilities? He held her hand, his touch cold despite the warmth of the room. Don't worry about that now. You need to focus on your recovery. But Marina couldn't focus on anything else. Her father was investigating. Beatrice was investigating. The truth was slowly emerging, like a body rising to the surface after being submerged for a long time. On the night of that day, when Raphael finally went home to rest, Marina picked up her phone and called her father. Dad, I need to tell you something. I saw files on Raphael's computer before I fell. There were documents about someone named Lorraine Silver. On the other end of the line, Henry took a deep breath. I know about Lorraine, daughter. I'm investigating. But I need to know, do you remember any more details from that night? Anything could be important. Marina closed her eyes, forcing her memory. She remembered the office, the computer light, the photos. And then, going back up the stairs, hearing Raphael's footsteps coming down, the rush, the panic, the stumble. But there was something more, something her brain insisted on keeping hidden. I remember being scared, Dad, very scared. But I don't know if it was just because I was in his office without permission or if there was another reason. All right, Marina, don't force it. Sometimes memory comes back little by little. But I want you to know that I'm doing everything in my power to uncover the truth, and I'm sure the truth will come out. When she hung up the phone, Marina felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. The pieces were moving on the board and she no longer had control over the game. But perhaps for the first time in a long time, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. She fell asleep that night thinking of the daughter she would never know, the life she would not live, the choices that had led her there. And she promised herself that no matter what happened, the truth would be revealed. Not just for the baby she lost, but for all the women who would come after her, who deserved a chance to escape before it was too late. Marina was discharged from the hospital a week after the accident, but she returned to a house that felt strange, as if it belonged to someone else in another life. The baby's room, carefully decorated in shades of pink and white, remained closed. Raphael suggested they dismantle everything immediately, but Marina refused. She wasn't ready yet to completely erase that presence that had never fully materialized. The routine at home was tense. Raphael maintained the facade of an attentive husband, but there was an even more intense vigilance in his eyes. He sensed that something had changed, that Marina was no longer the easily manipulated woman she once was, and that made him uneasy. It was on a Tuesday, exactly 15 days after the accident, that everything fell apart. Marina was in the living room when the doorbell rang. Raphael was in his office on a work video call. She opened the door and found a middle-aged woman, elegant, but with eyes marked by sleepless nights. "Marina Anderson?" the woman asked in a trembling voice. "Yes, that's me." "My name is Sylvia Miller. I'm Raphael's mother." Marina knew her mother-in-law, of course, but rarely saw her. Sylvia maintained a careful distance from the couple's life. "Mrs. Miller, please come in." The woman entered, looking nervously around. "Is Raphael home?" "He is, but he's busy. Did something happen?" Sylvia took a deep breath as if gathering courage for something very difficult. "I need to talk to you, alone. It's about what happened that night." Marina felt her heart race. "Let's go to the kitchen. It's more private." In the kitchen, away from Raphael's office, Sylvia sat at the table and began to speak, the words tumbling out as if she needed to free herself from them before regretting it. "I was on the phone with Raphael that night. He called me around 2 in the morning, nervous, saying he had caught you going through his files. I heard everything, Marina. Your argument, the shouting, and then the sound of the fall." Marina clutched the edge of the table. "So it wasn't just an accident. He was there with me on the stairs." Sylvia nodded, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "I don't know exactly what happened, but I heard his voice near you when you fell. And then, when the ambulance arrived, he called me again, asking me to confirm his version if the police investigated, to say it had been a simple domestic accident. And you confirmed it." "Yes, I confirmed it. The police called me the next day and I lied. I said I didn't know anything, that Raphael was home sleeping when it happened. But Marina, I can't live with this anymore. Not after knowing you lost the baby. Not after remembering Lorraine." "Lorraine, you knew her?" Sylvia closed her eyes, the pain evident in every line of her face. "I did. She was a secretary at the construction company 3 years ago. A sweet, hard-working girl. Raphael started harassing her, and when she refused his advances, he started stalking her. Threats, constant messages, unexpected appearances. At her house, she filed a police report. And what happened? My husband, Raphael's father, used his contacts to suppress the case. We offered her a sum of money to sign a confidentiality agreement and disappear. She accepted because she was afraid, and I kept silent because it was convenient for the family." Marina felt nauseous. How many? How many women before her? "As far as I know, 3. Lorraine was the only one brave enough to formally report him. The others just resigned and moved on with their lives. But Marina, I saw the same thing happen to you. I saw my son repeating the pattern, the control, the manipulation, the isolation, and I did nothing because he's my son, because I wanted to believe that with you it would be different. But it wasn't. It wasn't. And now an innocent life is gone because of my silence. That's why I'm here. I brought something for you." Sylvia opened her purse and pulled out an envelope. Inside were documents, copies of the out-of-court settlements, photos of Lorraine with bruises, and a USB drive. "What's this?" Marina asked, taking the USB drive. "The complete recording of that night's call. Everything is there. Raphael arguing with you, threatening you when he found out you were in his office, and then the sound of the fall. I recorded it because I always do that with important calls, an old habit. But I never imagined I'd have to use this recording this way." Marina held the USB drive as if it were a bomb. "This recording changes everything. I know. That's why I came to give it to you. Do what needs to be done. My son needs to answer for what he did, and I need to start repairing the harm I caused with my silence." At that moment, they heard footsteps coming from the hallway. Raphael appeared at the kitchen door, his face hardening when he saw his mother there. "Mother, what are you doing here?" Sylvia stood up, facing her son with a firmness Marina had never seen in her before. "Doing what I should have done a long time ago. Telling the truth." Raphael's face turned ashen. "You didn't do that. You didn't tell her. I told her everything. And I handed over the evidence. It's over, Raphael. I won't cover up your actions anymore." Raphael took a step towards his mother, but stopped when he saw Marina pick up the phone. "What do you think you're doing, Marina?" "Calling my father and the police." "You don't have the guts. You'll destroy everything we built together." Marina looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time without the filters of manipulation he had built over the years. "You destroyed everything yourself, Raphael. I'm just exposing what you've always been." As she dialed, Raphael tried to approach, but Sylvia stepped between them. "Don't you dare touch her again." The call connected, and Marina heard her father's voice on the other end. "Dad, she's here, Raphael's mother, and she brought evidence, the recording from the night of the accident, everything." The police arrived 40 minutes later. Detective Inspector Christine Baker, an experienced woman who had suspected Raphael's version from the beginning, listened carefully to Sylvia's statement. Then she played the recording right there, in the living room of that house that held so many secrets. Raphael's voice echoed through the speakers, clear and unmistakable. "You were where you shouldn't be, Marina, going through my things, invading my privacy. You have no right." And Marina's voice, scared, trying to explain. "Raphael, please let me go upstairs. We can talk about this calmly." Then confused sounds, a more heated argument, Raphael saying she couldn't tell anyone what she had seen. And then the unmistakable sound of a fall, screams, and the heavy silence that followed. The inspector turned off the recorder. "Mr. Miller, I'll need you to accompany me to give a statement." Raphael tried to maintain his composure. "This is ridiculous. It was an accident. My mother is making things up because she's emotionally distressed." But the inspector was already calling for backup. "Along with your mother's testimony and medical reports, indicating signs of restraint and struggle, we have enough evidence to investigate this case as something beyond a domestic accident. Furthermore, we've learned of previous archived complaints. This is a pattern, Mr. Miller." Henry Anderson arrived shortly after, accompanied by Beatrice. The former prosecutor hugged his daughter, holding her as she finally allowed the tears to fall. Marina had held the pain for so long that when she finally released it, it was like a dam breaking. "It's ending, daughter. The truth is coming out." In the days that followed, other pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Beatrice published an investigative article in the newspaper detailing Raphael's history and how cases like his were systematically suppressed by influence and money. The repercussion was immediate. 2 former employees of the construction company were emboldened to speak out, one of them even having a pending restraining order against Raphael for harassment. The testimonies accumulated, creating a clear picture of a man who used power and manipulation to control and abuse women. Lorraine Silver herself was located in Manchester by investigators hired by Henry. She agreed to give her testimony, breaking the confidentiality agreement. "I've suffered enough in silence," she declared to the press. "It's time for him to answer for what he did to me and so many others." Marina watched everything unfold from a safe distance, protected by family and friends. She had temporarily moved to her parents' house, refusing any contact with Raphael. The lawyer Beatrice had recommended, Dr. Camilla Rogers, was handling everything, preparing not only the lawsuit related to the accident, but also the divorce petition and restraining orders. With each passing day, Marina felt stronger. The fog of manipulation Raphael had woven around her was finally dissipating, allowing her to clearly see who he really was, and who she could be free from it. 6 months had passed since the fall. Brighton was in full spring, its tree-lined streets gaining new colors and the city breathing renewal. For Marina, those months were a journey of reconstruction, each day a small step towards who she truly was, beneath all the layers of manipulation Raphael had built. The legal process continued its course. Raphael was indicted for bodily harm, resulting in the interruption of pregnancy, in addition to facing charges of threat, stalking, and harassment, related not only to Marina, but to the other victims who found the courage to speak. The influence of the Miller family, once so powerful, crumbled under the weight of accumulated evidence and the public pressure generated by Beatrice's journalistic coverage. Mrs. Sylvia herself became a key witness, her detailed testimony and the recording she provided being fundamental pieces of the process. She had completely distanced herself from her son, choosing for the first time the side of truth instead of the comfort of denial. She still carried the guilt of her previous silences, but was trying to repair the damage through concrete actions, including discreetly funding support groups for women in vulnerable situations. Marina was on the porch of her parents' house when Beatrice arrived with news. Her friend had a special sparkle in her eyes, the kind that appeared when she was about to reveal something important. "Marina, I have news. The jury trial has been scheduled. It's next month." Marina nodded, setting aside the notebook where she was sketching a new drawing. After months away from art, she had slowly resumed the practice, discovering that painting was not only her passion, but also her therapy. "I'm ready, more than ready. And there's more. Do you remember the article I published about your case? It was nominated for an investigative journalism award, but the most important thing is the impact it caused. Hundreds of women contacted me reporting similar situations. Marina, your case opened doors." Marina felt her eyes well up. They weren't tears of sadness, but of purpose. What had started as her personal tragedy was transforming into something bigger. "If my story can help other women recognize the signs before it's too late, then perhaps all of this has meaning." It was at that moment that the idea was born, an idea that had been silently germinating in her mind during therapy sessions, during long conversations with other survivors, during the nights when her daughter's absence ached like an open wound. "B. I want to create something. A space for women like me. A place where they can find support, guidance, and most importantly, be heard without judgment." Beatrice smiled. "Like a support center. More than that, a place that integrates psychological, legal, and also artistic support. Art saved me, B. When I couldn't put into words what I felt, I could paint. I want to offer that possibility to other women too." "And how do you intend to do that?" Marina took a deep breath. "I'll use part of the inheritance I received from my grandmother, and I'll ask for the collaboration of professionals who believe in this cause. I know it won't be easy, but I need to do this. For my daughter. For the name I would have given her." "What would you have called her?" "Laura. I was going to call her Laura, which means victorious. And that's exactly what this space will be. The Laura Institute, a place of victory over violence, over silence, over fear." In the following months, as the legal process advanced, Marina immersed herself in the creation of the Institute. She found a property in the Greenwood neighborhood, a spacious house with gardens that needed renovation but had immense potential. She gathered a team of committed professionals, psychologists specializing in trauma, lawyers who worked pro bono on violence cases, and art therapists willing to donate their time. Her father, Henry, used his contacts from his prosecutor days to facilitate bureaucratic procedures and secure partnerships with the Municipal Protection Network. Her mother, Martha, organized donation campaigns and mobilized the community. Beatrice documented every step, transforming Marina's story into a symbol of resistance and reconstruction. Raphael's trial took place on a cold August morning. The courtroom was packed, not only with family and those involved, but with women who saw in that case the possibility of justice for their own stories. Marina entered the room with her head held high, wearing a navy blue blazer that her mother said highlighted the strength in her eyes. Raphael was different. The man once impeccable and confident now seemed smaller, defeated by the weight of the evidence against him. When their gazes met, Marina felt no fear. She felt only a deep calm, the certainty that she was doing the right thing. For 3 days, witnesses took turns on the stand. Doctors explained the injuries inconsistent with a simple fall. Mrs. Sylvia repeated her testimony, her voice firm despite her tears. Lorraine Silver shared her story, exposing the pattern of behavior. The former employees reported systematic harassment, and Beatrice presented the complete chronology of events, every piece of evidence meticulously documented. When it was Marina's turn to testify, she walked to the front with firm steps. The prosecutor, District Attorney Helen Vance, an experienced woman who had embraced the case with passion, conducted the testimony with sensitivity. "Marina, can you tell us in your own words what your life was like before the accident?" And Marina told her. She omitted nothing. She spoke about the gradual control, about how Raphael had isolated her from friends and family, about how he manipulated her perceptions, making her doubt her own sanity. She spoke about the constant fear, about the feeling of being trapped in an invisible cage, and she spoke about the night of the accident, about discovering the files on the computer, about the panic when she heard Raphael coming down the stairs. I didn't just fall. He was behind me, shouting. He caught up to me on the stairs. I felt his hands pulling me, holding me, and then the void, the fall, and then the greatest pain anyone can feel, losing a child who hasn't even been born yet. The silence in the room was absolute. Even Raphael, who until then had maintained a neutral expression, looked away. The defense tried to deconstruct her testimony, suggesting that her memory was flawed, that the recording could be interpreted in other ways, that everything was just an unfortunate domestic accident. But the sum of all the evidence, all the testimonies, all the documented patterns, created an undeniable picture. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges. Raphael was sentenced to 12 years of imprisonment, in addition to temporarily losing his corporate management rights. The room erupted in applause, tears, and hugs. Marina remained seated, absorbing the moment. Justice. That word that seemed so abstract now had weight, form, real consequences. When Raphael was escorted out, he stopped and looked at Marina one last time. He murmured something she couldn't hear completely, but it sounded like a veiled threat. Marina stood up and, with a clear voice that echoed through the silent room, replied, "You already destroyed me, Raphael, but I have risen from the ashes of what you tried to erase, and I will ensure that no other woman is silenced as you tried to silence me." 3 months later, the Laura Institute opened its doors. The inauguration was on a sunny November afternoon, exactly 1 year after the accident. The renovated house shone with vibrant colors, blooming gardens, and an energy of hope that filled every room. In the main hall, the walls were covered with paintings by women in recovery, each canvas telling a story of pain transformed into art. And in the place of honor above the fireplace was Marina's work, a sunrise over the Greenwood River, with a feminine figure extending her hands towards the golden light rising on the horizon. Marina, dressed in a simple white dress and her hair loose in the wind, welcomed the attendees. Today, we are not just inaugurating a physical space, we are inaugurating the possibility of a new beginning. For every woman who arrives here scared, hurt, lost, we want to offer what was offered to me: support, truth, and the certainty that it is possible to be reborn. Beatrice was there, photographing every moment for the article she would publish the next day with the title, "Truth Conquered Power." Henry and Martha, proud, circulated among the guests explaining the services the Institute would offer. Mrs. Sylvia appeared discreetly, leaving an anonymous donation and a note that simply read, "Thank you for showing me the path of courage." At the end of the ceremony, with the sun beginning to set and the first stars appearing in the sky, Marina walked to the garden where she had planted a flowering cherry tree sapling. That tree would grow alongside the Institute, its roots deepening, its branches expanding, its flowers always announcing new beginnings. A little girl, daughter of one of the first women assisted by the Institute, approached shyly. "Auntie Marina, is that painting inside yours?" "It is." "It's very beautiful. The woman is happy." Marina smiled, crouching to be at the child's height. "Do you know why she's happy? Because she discovered that even after very bad things happen, we can choose to start over. Light always returns after darkness." The girl nodded seriously. "My mum said you're very brave. Your mom is brave too, and you will be too." When the girl ran back to her mother, Beatrice approached Marina. "So, how are you feeling?" Marina looked around at the institute she had created, at the people gathered there, at the life she was rebuilding brick by brick. Complete. For the first time in a long time, I feel complete. Not because I forgot the pain, or because everything is perfect, but because I found purpose in that pain. Laura may not be here physically, but her legacy is already changing lives, and it will continue to change. You transformed your story into hope for so many other women. Marina touched her painting through the window, feeling the texture of the dry paint under her fingers. The technique she once used only as a hobby was now her tool for healing and transformation. When people ask me what justice means to me, I answer, it's not punishment, it's the chance to start over, for me and for all who come after. That night, as the lights in the Institute's courtyard remained lit like beacons of hope, Marina stayed there for a few extra minutes. She looked up at the starry sky and whispered a thank you to the daughter she would never know, but who somehow, through her absence, had given Marina the strength to fight, not only for herself, but for all women who needed a voice. The cold night wind brought the scent of the garden flowers, and Marina felt, perhaps for the first time since the accident, something akin to peace. The path had been long and painful, but she had survived, and more than that, she had transformed survival into purpose, trauma into action, silence into a collective voice. Tomorrow the Institute would welcome its first assisted women, scared, hurt, confused women, and Marina would be there to tell each of them, I understand, I've been through this, and there is a way out. You are not alone. As she walked back to the car where her father was waiting, Marina looked one last time at the illuminated building. Laura, the Laura Institute, victorious. Because in the end, despite all the pain, all the destruction, love had conquered fear, truth had conquered lies, and hope, stubborn and resilient, had blossomed where once there had only been ashes. Dear listeners, we hope Marina's story has deeply touched your hearts. Her journey shows us that even in the most difficult situations, when we feel we have lost everything, there is always a possibility of a new beginning, of transformation, of rebirth. The Laura Institute was born from pain, but it blossomed as a symbol of hope for so many women who need to know they are not alone. If this story resonated with you, if you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it. To continue experiencing intense emotions like this, we have a special playlist with other stories that explore the strength of the human spirit. Find them by clicking here. If Marina's story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Every day we bring unique narratives that celebrate resilience, courage, and the power of truth. And what did you think of Marina's transformation? What moment touched you the most? We await your reflections in the comments. Until the next story.